Mouin Rabbani is the co-editor of the online magazine Jadaliyya and an Arab-Israeli conflict analyst. He joins us live now from Montreal. Thanks very much for being with us. So let me ask you, first of all, about what's happening at the UN right now and this kind of passing of the language and wrangling over just what's going to be included in the text of this deal. Is it really going to make any difference in the end?
Well, I think the dilemma here is that any resolution that could make a meaningful difference in terms of the situation on the ground in the Gaza Strip is certain to be vetoed by the United States. And any resolution that the United States feels it is able to support is going to be essentially meaningless for the besieged population in the Gaza Strip. I mean, let's be clear, it was only this week that the United States voted against a General Assembly resolution affirming the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination. In addition to what your correspondent was reporting, there are additional reports that the U.S. insisted on seeing references to a demand for all parties, not just Israel, all parties, to respect international humanitarian law, to have that removed from the draft resolution as well. So in effect, the U.S. is voting for the continuation of the siege, for the continuation of the mass killings in the Gaza Strip. And most importantly, the idea of humanitarian assistance without a ceasefire is absolutely meaningless and illusory. I mean, who in their right mind believes that humanitarian assistance can be delivered throughout the Gaza Strip to all those in need, while the Gaza Strip is experiencing the most intensive bombing campaign in the entire history of the Middle East?
And when you see all of the pictures that are coming out of Gaza and what we've been reporting there of the constant bombardment and the desperate humanitarian situation, and that is juxtaposed with what's happening in New York, and you know, we see, well, we don't see it because it's behind closed doors, but people sitting around the tables arguing over this word and that word. What do you make of all of that? What do you make of that contrast?
Well, again, you have a situation in New York where a superpower with veto powers in the Security Council is doing its absolute best to ensure that the situation on the ground in Gaza remains unchanged. And if it changes, it will only change for the worst. And I think it's important to point out here that one reason that the U.S. would like to see references to international law removed from the draft resolution is because under international law, and let's remember the Security Council is effectively the custodian of international law to a large extent. Under international law, there can be no conditionality to the provision of humanitarian aid to a civilian population. And more importantly, or as importantly, under international law, an occupying power has a positive obligation to provide humanitarian assistance to the population it occupies. So, as your question implied, there is a complete disconnect between the discussions in New York and the reality in the Gaza Strip. And as a final point, I think it's worth considering that one reason that the U.S. is seeking to make this an absolutely meaningless word salad of a resolution is that perhaps they're trying to provoke the Russians or perhaps the Chinese into casting a vote against this resolution because it does nothing. And then, you know, they can play the innocent angel and blame others for the continuation of their policies.
Good to get your perspective on this, Mouin Rabbani. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.